Hi everyone and welcome to this new features highlight video. Twinmotion 2022.2 Preview 2 has just been released. I know there is a lot of 2. And in that new version, we have actually 2 main features, plus some quality of life improvements. So let's check everything together now. The first main feature of that new release is the integration of the Sketchfab library. Indeed, if you open the Twinmotion library on the left, now we have that new folder, Sketchfab. And here we have around 700,000 new assets directly available within Twinmotion. Here, let's have a look, for example, at the cars and vehicle folder. Here I already downloaded a couple of assets, like the one you are seeing over here. If I want to drag and drop that asset, just a simple drag and drop as any Twinmotion asset. Once it's downloaded, because all those assets are available on the cloud on demand. It's, as you can see here, we have that small icon download in the top right corner of the thumbnail. To do that, you will first need to sign in. If you are launching Twinmotion through the Epic Game Launcher, this is automatic. Or otherwise, you will need simply to click here. Once logged in, here you can start to download new assets. Let's try to find a new one that could suit the aesthetic of that project. That motorcycle, for example, here I will simply click on the download button. I'm going to simply drag and drop that asset in my scene. The first time you are drag and dropping a new asset, there will be that small window that tells you that the asset is converting. And once done, here I have my asset now available and I can use it for any future project. The Sketchfab library is created by a community. That means that when you want to use an asset, you need to credit the creator of that specific asset. So for example, here, that asset has been created by Animaniarty. If you want to copy the credit line you need to use when sharing a project that contains some of those assets, the best solution will be to simply click on the Open in Sketchfab. That will open that specific asset on the Sketchfab website. Here, when you click on the download button, you can simply copy the credit line over here. Also, from Twinmotion, if you open the scene organizer, if you select your object and switch to the metadata, here you have the author and the license. So as I said, in the library, here we have around 700,000 new objects available directly within the Twinmotion library. But on the Sketchfab website, you can also buy new assets. Here, if I come to the top and click on buy, let's have a look, for example, at the art and abstract. Here there are many objects. If I want to buy an object, I will simply click on the add to cart. Once bought, you will be able to download that asset as a GLTF. And this leads me onto one of the new Twinmotion features, which is the ability to import a file as a GLTF. As an example, here I just bought that gas station. And if I want to retrieve the GLTF, I will simply click on the download button and download the GLTF from here. I'm mentioning that because all the assets that you have directly from the Twinmotion library comes as a collapse all. That means that if you have some objects that are actually composed of multiple objects, you won't be able to use them. For example, here, that low poly people, here, all those characters will be collapsed as one mesh. So if you want to use that specific asset, it will be actually easier to download that pack of objects directly from the Sketchfab website. From here, if I download that as a GLTF, I'm going to retrieve the hierarchy set up by that creator. The next main feature in that new Twinmotion release is the ability to render really high resolution, up to 64K, without being limited by GPU memory. To choose that, you will click on the Format option, you will click on the More of the output size. First, you will need to enable the higher resolution. That option will do is actually it won't try to render the big image at once. It will actually divide that image in many smaller images. It will basically create a puzzle of all those images, and at the end, once all those small images are generated, it will just puzzle them back together to create that final image. And like I said, here you can type up to 64K, so that's a really large image, especially useful when you are trying to print that and display it in the middle of a street, for example. Here's just an example of that scene I just showed you where I exported in a 30 by 20 resolution. As you can see here, I can zoom pretty insanely, and that's just half the maximum resolution. As I said, you can render up to 60K, so twice as large as that image. We've also increased the resolution for panorama export. Here, if I click on the export dock and the more of the panorama, the previous maximum resolution was 8K, but now we can export up to 16K resolution for both local export, but also for the panorama set feature. So that will allow you to have a way more precise virtual visit of your project using Twinmotion Cloud. The next feature on the list is the ability to import light directly from your DCC. So here I will click on the Import tab, going to click on Open, and I will import that uDatasmith file. Once imported, here as you can see, I have some lights. Here we now support officially lights coming from ArchiCAD, Revit, 3ds Max and Rhino. So if you have set up some light in those CAD software, we are going to retrieve them directly inside Twinmotion. And from there, you can simply select your light and customize them as you usually do inside Twinmotion. Talking about lights, those lights now have a different icon in the scene graph. So here, if I come to my light folder, drag and drop an area, a neon or a mini directional light, as you can see here, all different type of light have a different icon to retrieve them a bit easier in the scene graph. And that's actually the same in the viewport. As you can see here, we have different icons to make the selection of them even more easier. Finally, the last change is on the color of the gizmo. As you can see here, we now use RGB color to make it easier to identify on which axis you are moving a different object. So for example here, as you can see in the transform panel, we can see that I'm moving on the y-axis. And that's it for this video. Thank you for joining us and we will see you all for the next one. Bye everyone!